Good afternoon. I am Tony Dottino, the founder of the USA Memory Championship and the president of Dottino Consulting. And this is my Saturday afternoon Live with Tony broadcast, and this is going to be the third part of an article that I've been reading out of Psychology Today, and that we are designed for success. And I've just been fascinated by this. This is what I've considered one of the best articles I've seen, read, the science behind resilience and how that leads us to success in our lives, and what the elements and the characteristics of people who are resilient. And I've just found it to be a fascinating article that's got a lot of good tips in it, a lot of things that I think if we could just learn how to filter and how to run what I call the synergy of our own thinking, what a huge difference that it can make in the outcomes that we achieve in our lives, and the processing of what I call creativity that comes from our life experiences, memories, forward with new information that gives us the opportunity to use the stressors in our life, the things that cause us to be a bit stressed, and use the resilience of our infinite capacity of our thinking towards bringing a positive outcome to situations that may initially start out to look like doom and gloom, that we may be able to transform into opportunities and growth. And so this whole article has just been fascinating, which starts on a very simple premise, is that humans are built to be resilient. And I found that to be interesting in itself, because in prior research I've read and used, it talks about characteristics of resilience in terms of situations, but it never has described it in terms of human thinking and the characteristics of a person to be resilient. So I have found one that they talked about that fits into the writings I've done on the brain's formula for success. Starts with our setting our goals, and how do we set our goals and set objectives in our lives and identify our purpose, or the things that, translation, that give us passion and energy, that fuel the creativity of our human capacity to generate actions or generate things that might take us closer to where we want to be. And so in reading this, doing this last part of this article on resilience, it talks about the psychological influence of hardiness, meaning when we are faced with stressing or stressors in our life, do we look at those and refocus on our goals and the values and the objectives that we want to achieve? And are those solid? Are those? So what I always say to people is, do you have your emotions connected to what you're trying to achieve in a positive way? So I'm looking for passion, excitement, enthusiasm, and love of what you're doing, of what you're trying to achieve. You hear so many people talk to, does this match with your passion that you have? And what we know is when we have that emotion stuck up in here, and I use sometimes our heart, when we have those emotions connected to it, then it generates the energy or the thinking of our rational thinking brain into figuring out the how-to. So now we have the combination of hardiness, that's a psychological reaction to goals and the values that we bring to a situation. The value that you bring to coming up with solutions and taking things that people might find stressful and figuring out how to minimize that stress and coming up with opportunities on how to do that. The other thing that the article has been supportive of is the notion that we are social beings. We've talked about this, or I've talked about it many, many times. And so how do you bring people together in the resilience as a team to overcoming adversity? And as we start the college football season today, and thinking about teams that are facing the adversity of first playing the game and dealing with COVID, but then actually being on the field and maybe some things don't go their way. Maybe somebody drops a ball and it's a fumble, or somebody doesn't catch a pass that it would have been a touchdown. How does the team or the leader of the team, how does the coach build resiliency into the team that brings that back to a success? And boy, I was thinking about that reading the sports column on Kansas City playing Houston Texans this Thursday night to open up the NFL season, and reading again and taking back to my memory, right? Yep, that Kansas City was behind in the first half of their game at the Super Bowl and wound up winning the game and declaring their first championship. Resiliency. How do you deal with the stresses in life and build resiliency? So as this article wraps up, and the last part of what I wanted to cover with you is, as an individual characteristic, resilience is psychological hardiness. It's the personality that has to have the value of appreciation of one's value you bring to a situation, and your goals and engagement. So being engaged in the situation rather than try to alienate yourself and kind of run away from it. And I found that to be really interesting. So here you are in a confrontation of some sort. It's going to cause you to be a bit stressed. We go lock into fight or flight, and now we want to engage. Now, the thing that's important as we see engagement is, do you engage in a level of calmness? Do you engage in a level of using your own creativity to figure out how to use the infinite capacity that we have to come up with new solutions to whatever the stresses are? So I found this fascinating, saying, hey, so don't run away from it, but stay with it and be resilient to say, let's take whatever the obstacles are and let them bounce off of us. So now what we want to be able to do is be empowered. So we want to be empowered to have the confidence within ourselves to say, we'll figure out the solutions, as opposed to feeling helpless and hopeless and therefore just giving up on it. So in my Grassroots Leader book, I talk about how do we talk to ourselves, what do we say to ourselves when we're confronted with a stressful situation or something that hasn't gone the way we want it to go. And so to that degree, how do we talk to ourselves? Do we beat ourselves up and just call ourselves incompetent or buffoons or we're not capable of? Or do we say it to ourselves, how do we use the power we have to stay focused on what we want to achieve and use our creative potential? And this is what I've loved about work I've done over the last 20 years, is recognizing what human potential is and studying the difference of people who reach their outcomes and people who stop and quit and give up. And boy, do I meet and talk with people today and reading how we're dealing with COVID-19 and how we, in some cases, are uncertain. Yeah, we're clearly uncertain. What do we believe? Where do we believe? Are we all going to get through this? And I keep reading about the people that are dealing with stress and getting depressed and suicides and kids not dealing with it well. And I'm saying, okay, if we can only switch the lever in their thinking to the hardiness, right, the hardiness of resilience, boy, what a difference we can make. So what we want to do is we want to focus on the challenge. We want to focus on the events and look at opportunity rather than threats and failure. So what do we need to do to create the outcomes that are going to be successful? So in other words, this was great. It denotes the ability to properly assess what the stresses are in our life at a given point in time. And which of those stresses can we take control over? Because those are the things that we can control and do something about, versus what are some of the things that may be dictated to us that we then have to work around or work with so that it doesn't collapse on our shoulders and cause us to succumb to it. Hardiness provides a protection against the ill effects of stress by facilitating problem solving rather than problem avoidance. And it facilitates an optimistic expectation of and a self-efficacy. Translation. Do we have enough of our own self-confidence and our own abilities to reach out in a moment of challenge and figure it out in a more positive way, in a fashion that ignites our energy and our enthusiasm to the unlimited creativity of the human spirit? And as I've said on my Live with Tony broadcast in the past, every time I watch from my front street a rocket launch from NASA, and I watch these rockets go off, and then they unhook, and the next thing, this thing is coming down and landing on a barge or landing on a field of some sort. I sit there and I marvel at the infinite capacity we all possess. We all have this potential. And how do we create this level of energy, enthusiasm in each and every one of us to deal with the challenges that we all face? And life will always have challenges and problems in it. But how do we switch that lever in our own capacity to use what we have the potential to do and bring solutions to the table, which open up brand new opportunities for us? And that's what we're trying to do with our Maximum Memory Mastery online course. We're working now on putting some additional elements in that are coming from the feedback we're getting from my Live with Tony broadcast, and putting that into the into the online course. And we're talking about retitling that to Brain Power. And it's really what we all have, and we just take it for granted because we go about our days. But how do we become more disciplined in our brain power and utilize it to maximum efficiency? So that is the end of this 3-part on resiliency. Tomorrow is Sunday, so we take Sunday off, and I'll be back on Monday. Today is mail day. I go pick up my mail in my P.O. box when the post office is closed. So I am practicing my creativity of all of the things that I can do to maintain my safety. I am in that over 60 population. And I want to be able to keep doing the Live with Tony broadcast. So I'm working on being smart and safe. And I see one of my favorite people is on today, which is Salongo. Aloha, Salongo. I guess you're still out there in Hawaii. I hope you're not being too risky and doing some surfing or riding the waves. And I always love your comments. They're so spot on, and it's always a pleasure to have you on the broadcast. So with that, by the way, I sent you a response to one of your emails, and I'm not sure if you saw it, but if you haven't, let me know, and we'll go back to what you were talking about in terms of meditation, and maybe I misread what you were asking me to do. So in any case, everybody have a good Sunday. If your teams are playing tomorrow and any of you want to go enjoy some of the NFL on TV, be smart, be safe, be careful of your social distancing, and we'll see you on Monday.